She called me a curse. She spat at my shadow. My mother-in-law swore I'd ruin her son's life, until the night the ancestors whispered my name, and I faced death itself to save her. This is the story of how hate turned to love in the heart of a city alive with secrets, spirits, and second chances. Grab a tissue, you're going to need it. The sun dipped low over Amani City, painting the skyline with hues of amber and crimson. Skyscrapers gleamed beside bustling markets where hawkers sang the prices of mangoes and roasted maize. The air carried the scent of jollof rice, diesel fumes, and the faint hum of ancestral songs from street drummers. This was my home, a place where modernity danced with tradition, where the spirits of the past lingered in the shadows of glass towers. My name is Sarah, and this is the story of how I found my place in a family that didn't want me. I was 25, newly married to James, the kindest man I'd ever known. His eyes sparkled like the Volta River under moonlight, and his laugh could chase away the darkest storms. But his mother, Mema Ifua, was a storm I couldn't outrun. From the moment James brought me to their family compound, a sprawling mansion in the heart of Amani City, she looked at me like I was a snake coiled in her garden. "You," she'd sneered, her voice sharp as a machete. "This is the girl you choose." A nobody from the river slums, with no lineage, no name. Her words stung, but I held my chin high. I wasn't born to wealth, but I had a heart full of dreams and hands that worked hard. My mother, rest her soul, had taught me to weave baskets so fine they were sold in city galleries. I wasn't ashamed of who I was. James defended me, his voice steady but respectful. "Mama, Sarah is my heart. She's my wife now." Mema Ifua's lips curled, and she turned away, her colorful head wrap swaying like a warning flag. From that day, she made it her mission to remind me I didn't belong. She'd criticize my cooking, saying my egusi stew lacked soul. She'd whisper to neighbors that I was bad luck, a curse on her son's bright future. Each word was a stone, piling up until I felt buried beneath her hate. But I loved James, and for him, I endured. Every morning, I'd rise before dawn, sweeping the compound's courtyard, its red earth cool under my feet. I'd pray to the ancestors, asking for strength, for a way to soften Mema Ifua's heart. Little did I know, the ancestors were listening, weaving a path that would test my courage and change everything. One evening, as the city's lights flickered to life, James came home with news. "Mama's been invited to the ancestral festival," he said, his eyes bright. The festival was Amani City's grandest event, a week of music, dance, and rituals honoring the spirits. It was held at the sacred Baobab Grove, a place where the veil between the living and the dead was thin. "She wants the whole family to attend." My stomach twisted. The festival meant days under Mema Ifua's scrutiny, her sharp tongue slicing me in front of Amani's elite. But James squeezed my hand. "We'll face it together, Sarah." I nodded, forcing a smile, but a chill ran through me, like the ancestors were whispering a warning I couldn't yet hear. The ancestral festival transformed Amani City into a tapestry of color and sound. Streets overflowed with Kent-clad dancers, their feet pounding rhythms that echoed the heartbeat of the earth. Vendors sold amulets carved with Adinkra symbols, promising protection and wisdom. The air buzzed with excitement, but beneath it, I felt a strange unease, like a storm gathering on the horizon. Our family arrived at the Baobab Grove, a sacred clearing where ancient trees stood like sentinels. Their gnarled branches seemed to whisper secrets, and the ground hummed with the energy of the ancestors. Mema Ifua, dressed in a regal purple robe, was greeted like royalty. As a respected elder, she'd been chosen to lead the opening libation, pouring palm wine to honor the spirits. She moved with grace, her presence commanding, but her eyes darted to me, cold and accusing. I stayed close to James, my hands trembling as I adjusted my head wrap, a gift from my late mother. The crowd was a sea of faces, politicians, artists, priests all gathered to celebrate Amani's heritage. I felt small, out of place, but James's arm around me was an anchor. "You're my queen," he whispered, and for a moment, I believed him. As the festival began, drummers filled the air with thunderous beats, and dancers spun like whirlwinds. A griot, his voice deep as the river, told tales of heroes and spirits. One story chilled me, a legend of the shadow spirit, a vengeful force that haunted those who disrespected the ancestors. Beware, the griot warned, for the shadow seeks those with heavy hearts. Mema Ifua's gaze flicked to me, and I shivered, feeling exposed. That night, under a star-strewn sky, the priests lit a bonfire, its flames licking the darkness. They called for offerings, cloth, beads, food to appease the spirits. I offered a basket I'd woven, its patterns inspired by my mother's teachings. The crowd murmured in approval, but Mama Ifua scoffed. "A trinket," she muttered. "The ancestors deserve better." Her words cut deep, and tears stung my eyes. I slipped away from the crowd, seeking solace by a quiet stream that bordered the grove. The water reflected the moon, and I whispered to my mother's spirit, "Why does she hate me? What have I done?" The stream rippled, and for a moment, I thought I saw a face, not my mother's, but an ancient woman's, her eyes kind yet fierce. "Patience, child," a voice seemed to whisper. "Your trial is coming." I returned to the festival, my heart heavy but resolute. As the night deepened, a priestess announced the great ritual, a ceremony to commune with the ancestors. Mema Ifua would lead it, but she needed a companion to carry the sacred offerings. To my shock, she pointed at me. "Let Sarah do it," she said, her voice dripping with challenge. "If she's truly part of this family, let her prove it." The crowd hushed. James tensed, but I stepped forward, my heart pounding. This was no honor, it was a test, a chance for Mama Ifua to see me fail. But the ancestors had spoken, and I felt their eyes on me. Whatever lay ahead, I would face it, not for her, but for myself. The great ritual was no simple task. The priestess explained that Mema Ifua and I would journey into the heart of the Baobab Grove, to a hidden shrine where the ancestors' spirits were strongest. We'd carry offerings, palm wine, kola nuts, a woven cloth, and present them at the shrine, asking for blessings. The path was sacred, but rumors swirled of dangers, wild animals, treacherous terrain, and whispers of the shadow spirit. Mema Ifua's eyes gleamed with malice as she handed me the heavy basket of offerings. "Don't drop it," she snapped. "The ancestors won't forgive carelessness." James squeezed my hand, his face tight with worry. "Be careful, Sarah," he whispered. I nodded, but my chest tightened. Something felt wrong, like the air itself was holding its breath. We set out at midnight, the grove's shadows swallowing us. The path was narrow, lined with twisted roots and thorny vines. Moonlight barely pierced the canopy, and the air grew thick, heavy with the scent of earth and something sharper, fear. Mema Ifua walked ahead, her steps sure, but she didn't speak to me. The silence was louder than any insult. As we ventured deeper, the grove came alive. Owls hooted, their cries like warnings. The wind rustled leaves, whispering words I couldn't grasp. My arms ached from the basket's weight, but I pressed on, driven by the need to prove myself. Then, a low growl echoed through the trees. I froze, my heart racing. What was that? I whispered. Mema Ifua turned, her face unreadable. "Keep moving," she said, but her voice wavered. We continued, but the growls grew closer, joined by the snap of twigs. My mind raced to the griot's tale of the shadow spirit. Was it real? Was it watching us? I clutched the basket tighter, praying to my mother's spirit for protection. Suddenly, the path dipped into a ravine, its walls steep and slick with moss. Mema Ifua hesitated, her confidence faltering. "We have to cross," she said, but her eyes betrayed fear. I stepped forward, testing the ground. It was treacherous, but I felt a strange calm, like the ancestors were guiding my feet. "Follow me," I said, surprising myself with my firmness. Mema Ifua scoffed but followed. Halfway across, her foot slipped, and she cried out, tumbling toward the ravine's edge. Without thinking, I dropped the basket and grabbed her arm, pulling her back. For a moment, we stood there, breathless, her eyes wide with shock. "You saved me," she whispered, but her tone was cold, not grateful. I retrieved the basket, my heart heavy. Why did I save her? She'd never thank me. But as we reached the shrine, a faint light glowed from the offerings, and the air hummed with power. The ancestors were watching, and I felt their judgment. Whatever happened next, I knew this night would change us both. The shrine was a small clearing, dominated by a stone altar carved with ancient symbols. The air was thick with the scent of incense and earth, and the baobab trees loomed like guardians. The offerings glowed faintly, as if alive, and I felt a presence, many presences, watching us. Mema Ifua's face was a mask, but her hands trembled as she arranged the kola nuts and cloth on the altar. "Speak the words," she ordered, thrusting a scroll at me. It was the ritual chant, written in an old dialect. I stumbled through the words, my voice shaking, but as I spoke, the air grew warmer, the glow brighter. Mema Ifua's eyes widened, and for the first time, I saw something like fear in them. "Keep going," she hissed, but her voice cracked. As I chanted, the ground rumbled, and a wind whipped through the clearing. Shadows danced on the altar, forming shapes, faces, hands, eyes. The ancestors were here. I felt their weight, their wisdom, their pain. My mother's face flickered among them, her eyes urging me to be strong. Tears streamed down my cheeks, but I didn't stop. Then, a voice, not mine, not Mema Ifua's, spoke from the altar. "Why do you bring hate to this sacred place?" it demanded, deep and resonant. Mema Ifua gasped, stepping back. "Who carries the heavier heart?" the voice continued. I froze, my throat tight. Was it speaking to her, or me? Mema Ifua fell to her knees, her regal facade crumbling. I only wanted to protect my family," she stammered. "She's not worthy." The voice roared, shaking the trees. "Worthy is not yours to judge. Look within, Ifua, or the shadow will claim you." The shadow. My blood ran cold. The griot's warning echoed in my mind. Was it coming for her? For us? The glow faded, and the air grew heavy again, oppressive. Mema Ifua's eyes met mine, and for the first time, I saw not just hate, but fear, shame, and something deeper, pain. She was hiding something, a secret the ancestors knew. We left the shrine in silence, the offerings accepted but the ritual unfinished. The path back was darker, the growls louder. I felt eyes on us, not just the ancestors but something malevolent. Mema Ifua's steps faltered, and I realized she was afraid not of me, but of what she'd awakened. The ancestors had spoken, but the night wasn't over, and the shadow was closer than ever. The return journey was a descent into dread. The grove's shadows seemed to move, curling like smoke around us. The growls were no longer distant, they were close, circling. Mema Ifua's breath came in short gasps, her regal posture gone. I gripped the empty basket, my heart pounding. Whatever was out there, it wasn't just an animal. It was something older, hungrier. "Sarah," Mema Ifua whispered, her voice barely audible. "Do you hear it?" I nodded, my eyes scanning the darkness. The air was thick with a metallic tang, like blood. "It's the shadow," she said, her words trembling. "I've felt it before." Her admission stunned me. What did she mean? What had she done? Before I could ask, a shape lunged from the trees, a massive, formless thing, its eyes glowing red. I screamed, pulling Mema Ifua behind me. The creature didn't attack, but its presence was a weight, pressing against my chest. "Ifua," it hissed, its voice like gravel. "You cannot hide." Mema Ifua sobbed, clutching my arm. "It's my fault," she whispered. "Years ago, I wronged the ancestors." My mind raced. What had she done? Why was the shadow here now? But there was no time for answers. The creature circled, its form shifting, now a leopard, now a man, now nothing but eyes in the dark. "Run," I said, my voice steady despite my fear. We stumbled through the grove, thorns tearing at our clothes. The shadow followed, its whispers filling the air. Pay the price, Ifua. My mother's voice echoed in my mind. Courage, Sarah. The ancestors choose the brave. I didn't understand, but I knew I couldn't let the shadow take her, not like this. We reached a clearing, the festival's lights faint in the distance. The shadow loomed closer, its form solidifying into a towering figure cloaked in darkness. Mema Ifua collapsed, her face ashen. I lied, she gasped. I cursed your mother, Sarah. I blamed her for my husband's death. The ancestors, they've never forgiven me. Her words hit like a blow. My mother, the kind woman who'd raised me alone, who'd died too young. Rage surged, but the shadow's eyes locked onto me, and I felt its hunger. It wasn't just after Mema Ifua, it wanted us both, our pain, our hate. I had a choice, let it consume her, or fight for us both. Mema Ifua's confession hung in the air, heavy as the shadow's presence. My mother, cursed. The woman who taught me to love, to weave, to survive. Tears burned my eyes, but the shadow's growl pulled me back. It was closer now, its form a twisted mockery of a human, its eyes boring into us. Truth, it hissed. Speak it, or perish. Mema Ifua's voice was a broken whisper. Your mother, she was my friend, Sarah. But when my husband died in a market fire, I blamed her. She was there, selling her baskets. I said she brought bad luck, that her spirit angered the ancestors. I spread lies, turned the community against her. She left Amani City, broken, and I never made it right. My heart shattered. My mother had never spoken of this, but I remembered her sadness, the way she'd clutch me at night, whispering, "We'll be okay, Sarah." She died alone, far from home, because of Mema Ifua's lies. I wanted to scream, to let the shadow take her, but my mother's face flickered in my mind, her kind eyes, her strength. She wouldn't want vengeance. The shadow lunged, its claws grazing Mema Ifua's arm. She screamed, blood seeping through her robe. Without thinking, I threw myself between them, my basket raised like a shield. Leave her, I shouted, my voice echoing through the grove. The shadow paused, its eyes narrowing. Why protect her? It asked, its voice a blade. She destroyed your blood. I trembled, tears streaming down my face. Because hate won't heal me. Because my mother taught me to choose love, even when it hurts. The words felt like fire, burning away my anger. Mema Ifua sobbed behind me, her hands clutching my skirt. The shadow's form flickered, its hunger wavering. Then, a light broke through the trees, not the moon, but something warmer, like the glow at the shrine. The ancestors. Their voices filled the air, a chorus of whispers. Forgiveness is strength. Heal the wound, Sarah. The shadow roared, but it was weakening, its form dissolving. I turned to Mema Ifua, her face wet with tears. I'm sorry, she choked. I was wrong, so wrong. I didn't know if I could forgive her, not yet, but I took her hand, pulling her to her feet. The shadow's eyes flared one last time, then vanished, leaving only silence. The ancestors' light faded, but their presence lingered, warm and approving. We stumbled toward the festival, Mema Ifua leaning on me, her blood staining my dress. The night wasn't over, but the shadow was gone, for now. We emerged from the grove as dawn broke, the festival still alive with music and prayer. The crowd gasped at our state-torn clothes, Mema Ifua's blooded arm, my tear-streaked face. James ran to us, his eyes wide with fear. Sarah. Mema. What happened? I couldn't speak, my throat raw from the night's horrors. Mema Ifua clung to me, her strength gone. The priestess approached, her eyes sharp. The ancestors have spoken, she said, studying us. What did you see? Mema Ifua's voice was faint but clear. The shadow, it came for me. Sarah, she saved me. The crowd murmured, their eyes on me. I felt exposed, But the priestess's gaze softened. The ancestors choose the brave, she said, echoing my mother's words. Mema Ifua was taken to a healer, her wound cleaned and bandaged. James held me as I recounted the night. The shrine, the shadow, her confession. His face darkened with anger, but I touched his arm. She's your mother, I said. She's suffered enough. He nodded, but I saw the pain in his eyes. This wasn't over for any of us. The festival continued, but the air had changed. People whispered about the shadow, about my courage. Some called me a hero, others eyed me with suspicion, as if I'd summoned the spirit myself. Mema Ifua remained silent, her eyes distant. I wondered if her apology was real, or if fear had forced it. The ancestors had spared us, but forgiveness was a heavier task. That night, the priestess called us to the bonfire. The ancestors demand truth, she said. Ifua, speak. Mema Ifua stood, her voice trembling but resolute. She confessed everything, her lies about my mother, her hate for me, her fear of the shadow. The crowd was silent, their judgment heavy. Tears fell as she turned to me. Sarah, I don't deserve your forgiveness. But I'll spend my life earning it. I didn't know what to say. My heart ached for my mother, but I felt the ancestors' eyes, urging me forward. We'll heal together, I said, my voice breaking. The crowd erupted in cheers, but my tears weren't for them. They were for my mother, for Mema Ifua, for the pain we'd both carry. The festival ended, but Amani City buzzed with our story. Mema Ifua's confession had shaken the community, and people began to speak my mother's name with respect, honoring her memory. I felt her spirit closer, her love guiding me. But healing wasn't easy. Mema Ifua and I were fragile with each other, like cracked clay pots ready to shatter. She invited me to the compound one evening, her eyes softer than I'd ever seen. Sarah, she said, I want to learn from you. Teach me to weave, like your mother did. My heart swelled, and we sat together, my hands guiding hers over the reeds. It was slow, awkward, but it was a start. James watched, his smile a quiet hope. The city began to change, too. The festival's events sparked talks of unity, of honoring all stories, not just those of the elite. My baskets became symbols of resilience, sold in markets and galleries. But the shadow's memory lingered, a reminder of how close we'd come to losing everything. I prayed daily, thanking the ancestors for their guidance, asking for strength to forgive. One night, I dreamed of my mother. She stood by the stream, her smile radiant. You've made me proud, Sarah, she said. Love is your power. I woke crying, but they were tears of release. I knew then that forgiveness wasn't about erasing pain, it was about choosing to build something new. Mema Ifua began to share stories of my mother, telling neighbors of her kindness, her talent. It was her way of making amends, and slowly, I felt the weight of her hate lift. We weren't mother and daughter, not yet, but we were family, bound by the ancestors' will and the night that changed us.